They had first-class tickets. They followed every rule. And still they were told, step aside. You don't belong here. No reason. No check. Just a quiet command from a flight attendant who saw their skin color before she saw their boarding passes. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a message. And it nearly ruined a family's dream vacation. But then, the father reached for his phone. One call. Moments later, the gate was locked, the plane was delayed, and the woman who humiliated them was escorted away in silence. Who answered that call? And how did that one quiet move bring an entire airline to its knees? The airport was alive with the usual chaos, families in motion, business travelers weaving through terminals, the metallic drag of suitcases echoing against tile floors, and announcements rising above it all like waves crashing over a tide of human activity. Terrence Warren walked with quiet purpose through Terminal C, his polished Oxfords making muted contact with the floor. He was dressed in a light gray blazer, crisp slacks, and a navy shirt that matched the calm confidence in his eyes. Just behind him walked his wife, Andrea, carrying their youngest daughter's unicorn backpack. Their two kids, Elijah and Zoe, kept close by, overwhelmed and fascinated by the sprawling glass and steel structure that hummed with anticipation and movement. This trip meant more than a getaway. It was the first time the Warren family would vacation together since Terrence had launched his consultancy firm. 3 years of grueling travel and sleepless strategy sessions had finally brought success and platinum status with the airline. This trip to the Virgin Islands was not just deserved. It was sacred. Look, Mom, there's a candy store over there. Elijah called out, pointing at a brightly lit display case beyond the boarding gate. Andrea smiled and gently pulled him back. We'll check it out after we board. Okay. Zoe clung to her mother's hand, her big eyes taking in every sight, sound, and announcement. Terrence turned to glance back at them with a quiet smile. They'd sacrificed so much to reach this moment, and he wanted every second to be perfect. At gate C-14, Flight 607 to St. Thomas was preparing to board. The placard above the agent's desk read, "Now boarding first class," and the corridor to the jet bridge was clear and calm. Terrence walked to the counter and offered their 4 first-class tickets to the gate agent, a thin woman with blonde hair tied back in a tight bun. Her name tag read Madeline. She glanced up. Her eyes paused on Terrence, then shifted to Andrea, Elijah, and Zoe. Her expression remained unreadable. Terrence offered a polite smile. "Good afternoon." Madeline didn't smile back. She took the tickets and scanned them one by one. Each emitted a confirming beep. Green light. Boarding confirmed. But something in her posture stiffened. Then she handed the tickets back. "I'll need you to wait over there," she said flatly. "First class isn't boarding at the moment." Terrence blinked. "I'm sorry, didn't the board just say?" She cut him off. "Please step aside." "Thank you." He stepped back, confusion tightening in his chest. Andrea gave him a questioning glance. "What happened?" Terrence lowered his voice. "She said first class isn't boarding." "But the sign says it is," Andrea replied. He turned back to Madeline. "Excuse me," he said, keeping his tone calm. "We have first-class seats. Platinum status. Our tickets were scanned." She looked at him again, her eyes now narrowed. "I'm aware," she said, "but we need to verify a few things. It'll just be a moment." No one else was asked to wait, Terrence said, gesturing to the passengers already boarding. Several of them, mostly white, were now walking casually down the jet bridge. Madeline shrugged. "Please move aside, sir. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a technical issue. It was something else, something Terrence had felt too many times in too many boardrooms, restaurants, hotel lobbies, and now, apparently, at the gate of a plane he had paid handsomely to board." Andrea stepped forward. "Our kids are watching," she said softly. Terrence nodded. He pulled out his phone. "Who are you calling?" she asked. "The only person who can fix this." He walked a few feet away, found the contact labeled C. Donahue, Exec, VP Airline Relations, and hit dial. The phone rang twice before a voice answered. "Terrence, everything okay?" "No, didn't sleep. We're at gate C-14. We've been denied boarding for no reason." We're flying first class. Platinum status. All tickets scanned and confirmed. There was a pause. I'll take care of it, said the voice. Stay where you are. Back at the gate, the boarding had slowed. Madeline was now typing quickly, her eyes darting between her monitor and something unseen. Minutes later, a voice came through the airport PA system. Flight 607 is experiencing a brief delay due to final gate verification. Please stand by. Passengers began murmuring. A few looked over at Terrence and his family. Andrea held Elijah and Zoe close. Her voice was calm but firm. Everything's going to be okay. Then, as if summoned by storm, two airport officials emerged. One wore a red-striped supervisor's jacket. The other was in a navy blue suit, a badge clipped to his chest. Carlton Donahue, Executive Vice President, Airline Relations. He walked straight to Madeline. They spoke in hushed tones. Madeline's face drained of color. She attempted to speak, but Donahue raised his hand and motioned her away from the counter. Turning to Terrence, Donahue smiled. Mr. Warren, I deeply apologize for this unacceptable treatment. Please, allow me to escort your family aboard. Andrea looked stunned. Terrence nodded. Thank you. The boarding gate opened. The Warren family walked down the jet bridge in silence. Behind them, whispers filled the terminal. Madeline was gone. The delay lifted. Inside the cabin, Terrence and Andrea settled into their seats. Elijah and Zoe giggled in excitement. But Terrence's face was still clouded. I'm glad you called him, Andrea whispered. Terrence shook his head slowly. I shouldn't have had to. The hum of the plane grew louder as they taxied. Then, over the intercom, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We're making adjustments today to ensure every guest receives the respect and courtesy they deserve. Terrence glanced at Andrea. Her eyes shimmered. The sky outside was endless and blue. But this flight, this moment, would be the beginning of something far greater than a family vacation. And the whole world would feel its echo. The plane ascended steadily, cutting through thick clouds, leaving behind a terminal filled with questions and an airline forced to confront itself. The atmosphere in first class was calm, but inside Terrence, a storm churned. He had faced discrimination before, covert looks, second-guessing, subtle exclusions, but rarely had it been so blatant, so unapologetically public. Andrea reached across the armrest, her fingers wrapping around his. We're here. That's what matters now, she whispered, her voice laced with both warmth and exhaustion. Terrence gave a tight nod. Yeah, but this isn't over. By the time dinner was served, grilled salmon with lemon dill sauce and saffron rice, Zoe had drifted off beside Andrea, curled under a soft navy blanket. Elijah tapped away at the screen in front of him, watching a superhero movie, occasionally glancing out the window. Terrence pushed his food around with a fork. His appetite was gone. He was thinking about what happened at the gate, not just as a father or a passenger, but as a black man who had spent his entire career building a reputation strong enough to be undeniable. And still, it hadn't been enough to stop one woman from deciding he didn't belong. He leaned over to Andrea. I want to do something. She looked up from her glass of wine. Like what? I don't know yet. But it can't just end with her getting escorted away. This is systemic. And if it happened to us, it's happened to others. Andrea nodded slowly. Then we'll do something. Together. When the plane landed in St. Thomas, the air felt different, warm, open, honest. But before they could reach the baggage carousel, a uniformed airport staff member approached. Mr. Warren? She asked cautiously. Yes. My name is Keisha Harper. I'm with Customer Affairs for the airline. Mr. Donahue asked me to greet you personally and offer any assistance during your stay. He's also asked if you'd be willing to speak with him later this week about your experience. Terrence exchanged glances with Andrea. I'd be happy to. The family was escorted through a private exit, bypassing the crowded terminal. Their bags were already waiting in a private area, their rental car pulled to the curb, windows rolled down, chilled water in the cup holders. Every moment of their arrival was smoothed and polished, but it couldn't erase the stain of what had come before. Over the next few days, The Warren family settled into vacation mode. Days spent snorkeling and paddleboarding, nights dining beneath hanging lanterns on beach patios. Elijah built sandcastles that collapsed too quickly. Zoe sang to hermit crabs in the tide pools. But each evening, after the kids fell asleep, Terrence and Andrea sat on the balcony of their suite, discussing what they would say when they met with Donahue again. It had to be more than recounting what happened. It had to spark something: policy, awareness, accountability. On the 5th day, Terrence received a message. Mr. Warren, I've arranged a private meeting room at the executive offices near the airstrip. Transportation will be provided. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. C. Donahue. Terrence arrived alone. The building was sleek, soundproof, and entirely modern. Inside, Donahue stood by a conference table with a panoramic view of the runway. Terrence, he greeted. I can't thank you enough for coming. Let's just get right to it, Terrence said. Donahue nodded. We've launched an internal investigation. The employee in question, Madalena, has been suspended pending review. But we know this is bigger than one person. Then change has to reflect that, Terrence said. You need to mandate implicit bias training for all customer-facing employees. And not a check-the-box session real education. Include community advocates. Collect stories. Publish transparency reports. Donahue raised an eyebrow. Would you be willing to be part of that advisory group? Terrence hesitated, then said, yes, but not as a symbol. If I do this, I want to help restructure how you define professionalism, customer value, and how you track incidents. You have my word, Donahue said. Over the next month, Terrence worked with the airline's leadership team remotely, reviewing scripts, adjusting protocols, and helping draft the outline for a new division: passenger equity and experience integrity. When the airline launched the program publicly, Terrence's name was included in the press release not as a guest, but as a consultant. He became a quiet figure of accountability, helping build a system that valued every passenger's dignity as much as their frequent flyer status. Weeks later, back home in Atlanta, Terrence walked through the airport once again, this time not as a passenger, but as someone invited to speak to a room full of gate agents. He stood in front of them, not behind a podium, just face to face. My name is Terrence Warren. I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm here to remind you that every person who walks up to that gate is someone's parent, child, or partner. The moment you choose to see their valuer, ignore it sets the tone for the entire flight. He looked into their eyes. Some were indifferent, but many weren't. Many were listening. That day at the gate, he continued, my children watched someone tell us we didn't belong. But today, they'll know that when we spoke up, we weren't just angry. We made something better. As Terrence walked out of the terminal, the same rolling suitcases echoed against the tile. But this time, the silence whispered something different. Not rejection, not judgment, but resolve. Because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers and waits for someone to listen.